to music first, always.
We are unstoppable.
Open the frontiers to make people meet people.
Music is not fireworks. Music is feeling.
You're good to go.
Thank you, vote for the music.
This is Vote for the Music, the Eurovision podcast.
Hello and welcome back to Vote for the Music, the Eurovision podcast. I'm Benjamin Tadeusz.
And I'm Tadeusz.
Now, of course, we're continuing our quickfire reviews of the Eurovision Song Contest 2024, and we're working our way through the second half of the first semi-final, which will take place on the 7th of May in Malmö. And we're on to song number 9, which is Slovenia, Veronika by Raiven.
This song immediately makes history, as this is the first time since 2017 that I don't like Slovenian Eurovision entry. This is a complex shuffle behind the scenes led to the national selection's veteran Raiven coming to Eurovision after being internally picked, with the song written by the fan favorite, last year's representative, Bojan Świetlicanin of the crowd fame. However, our accomplished rock writer for her fellow artist decided to go in a different direction and created a ballad with historical theme. Veronika, the woman put to death under the charge of practicing witchcraft in medieval times, becomes the subject of her very own single. Interesting idea, yet somehow its execution is anything but interesting. In its essence, this is a ballad with a very predictable main melody, accompanied by some irregular drums and high cries put in the background. Because, witchcraft.
Yes, this is very much a themed song about Veronika of Decius, who is a historical figure in Balkan history from Croatia, but also around the area of Slovenia as it is now from the 15th century. She was the wife of Frederick II. She was arrested, she was tried as a witch, she was acquitted, but then she was murdered, and there was a whole thing, and essentially that's what Raiven is singing about here. So naturally the whole song revolves around themes of witchcraft, themes of wrongful imprisonment, all of those kind of things, and I think it pulls it off quite successfully.
Veronika is most certainly the ballad about witchcraft, but it seems Bojan called it a day after making that conclusion. And I'm sorry, but it's really not enough for me to pick an interest. This is a song that keeps its theme, however, without looking much into it. Other witch-related propositions this year, like Doomsday Blue or Witcher Tarot Horror, brought far more creativity in that regard, for better or worse. However, the track is still solidly produced, most likely we can also expect it to be very well performed vocally, and considering that we have a story about the witch to tell, I expect that a lot will be happening on stage as well.
If the music video is anything to go by, then yes, you think we'd have something quite abstract, a lot of dancers, that kind of thing. But then if we look at Slovenian history at Eurovision, the way they usually stage songs, they usually don't have very much going on stage at all. It's usually quite basic. Now, we could have an entirely different approach this year, that is true. But knowing what the Slovenian broadcasting usually pulls off, I'd be very surprised if we get anything nearly as dramatic or wild or as inventive as seen in the music video. If we just look at the previous few Slovenian entries, Valene in 2018 just had Lea Sirk and some dancers just dancing around the stage, not a whole lot going on there. Sebi just had Sara Gasper standing on stage staring at each other while the camera went round them a few times. Amen just had Anna Solic walking around the stage with some LED backdrops. To its credit, although it did come dead last, Disco had something a bit more going on. It had a big disco ball in the centre that was quite the focus, but mainly it was just LPS around a big disco ball. That was the extent of the staging. And then Carpe Diem was just Joker out on stage with their instruments giving a very good performance, but it was mainly the camera work that was there. There was nothing particularly interesting going on stage apart from them and the cameras, which to their credit is probably the best thing for that type of song. But for this type of song, I like to say we saw the Slovenian broadcaster and the way they usually stage it is necessarily best suited to this type of song, and I could see them going with something quite basic, just Raiven sort of there singing, maybe with sort of grey colours and those sort of witchcrafty like LED graphics, and maybe a few dancers, but I can't see anything as impressive as perhaps it would need to be.
With all that, odds are definitely in Raiven's favor. Many fans already like it very much, putting Veronika even in top 10. Even more people are going to like the song once they hear it in the semi-final.
Hey, as I say, for reasons of potentially how they might do the staging, also because the song could just get forgotten. Those sort of songs, like Veronika, don't tend to do that well at Eurovision. Irrespective of their quality, they just don't have a long history of doing very well. Often they would get picked up by the juries, that's true, but we don't have juries here in the semi-final. And I think compared to the music video, the live performance, although vocally might be very strong, I'm not sure will leave as much of an impression.
Having benefits of vocal abilities and staging, I would say Slovenia may be very calm about qualification this year. They would have to really screw up to fail to qualify, considering the very weak competition they ended up with. Like, during the second half, that's already an advantage. Who is supposed to overshadow them in that second half?
I mean, yes, that is the point. The second half of this first semi-final, I think, is undoubtedly one of the weakest runs of Eurovision songs we've had in any semi-final for a very long time. I think pretty much all of this second half is quite impressive. And I think, because the first half is relatively strong, a lot of the first half is going to qualify and a lot of the second half isn't going to qualify. Now, Slovenia could be one of the second half of the semi-final that is going to qualify, and I think they're one of the more likely candidates. But I think having Finland right after it, which we'll cover tomorrow, so stand by for that. We're not going to talk about it entirely here, but I think having a song like that right after it, which is so televote friendly, irrespective of its quality, it's very televote friendly, could completely overshadow it by televotes. And as I say, because there are no juries here, that could be an issue for Veronika. And it could be a big power to the first half of the first semi-final. But I think, as I say, considering the weak competition, yes, there was the point that Veronika might do better than it would do in any other semi-final, and even potentially with weak staging, with a good live performance, with a good impression, this song could get through. I wouldn't necessarily call it a non-qualifier. I would call it a borderline qualifier, something with a decent chance, but not in the likely section. It's sort of could non-qualify, could qualify, could go either way, probably closer towards qualification than non-qualification. So I think Raiven's chances are fairly okay. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it in the final, but also I wouldn't be surprised if this did non-qualify.
For me, Veronika is somewhat of a personal disappointment. However, from technical point of view, it's a fine song, which is more that can be said of some of its competition.
So thank you for listening. Those are our thoughts on Slovenia's entry for the Eurovision Song Contest 2024. Join us tomorrow, where we'll be taking a look at Finland's entry for the contest and see just what they're following up last year's very memorable second place with. Until then, please follow us on whatever podcasting app you're listening to us on, whether that be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Please interact with us wherever you can, whether that's leaving your review, interacting with our Q&As, commenting down below on YouTube, or even emailing us with our email address, contact@voteforthemusic.co.uk. But until then, thank you for listening, and please remember to vote for the music.
This is to music first, always.
We are unstoppable.
Open the frontiers to make people meet people.
Music is not fireworks. Music is feeling.
You're good to go.
Thank you, vote for the music!
vote for the music. The Eurovision Podcast.